Hi, I'm Ramona Wurst with Ramona's Basil Garden. I'm actually going to put some red wigglers into some of my basil plants. Well, I have placed an order for some worms for my container garden, and watch Jerry as he manually sorts them. Now, Jerry, you were saying that you want to put between 12 to 15 worms in each of the pots?
I think this is a 5-gallon nursery container in a true gallon. I'd put 3 or 4 dozen in a big one like this. In a smaller container, dozen, 2 dozen.
When you put worms in a regular ceramic container, you'd need to feed them a little bit of something, wouldn't you?
Potting soil in there will break down. There will be food in there for them.
Oh, okay. Well, here is my pound of worms. And, I was saying earlier that I really love earthworms, and, that I can pick them up with my bare hands or out in the garden. And, as we learned today, you really shouldn't be playing with them with your bare hands unless you go and really wash your hands with an antibacterial. After looking at a pound of these little guys, I think I'll go back to, I like 1 or 2 at a time. But these are actually going to go into my basil, and we've already gone over about how many to place in your basil containers, and these are healthy worms. These are fed cow and horse manure. Now, some of the benefits of putting actually the red wigglers in your basil plant is they not only aerate the soil around your roots, but they are depositing direct worm castings right where your plant needs it, and that's at its root system. When you get worm castings, if you didn't want to do the actual worms, this is what it looks like. Kind of looks like coffee grounds. But this is pure West Texas worm castings, and the worms were fed cow and horse manure. Very, very good nutrition for the worms, and the worms reward you by giving you good, rich worm castings. What you want to do is you want to first dampen or water your basil plant. I'm going to show you. First, we're going to go ahead and actually apply or put some of my red wiggler worms in here. Whenever I'm handling worms, I always wear gloves. Now, you can get latex gloves in your pharmacy area at any store. They come in a box, so you'll always have them handy, and you should always have them in your greenhouse. One of the reasons you want to, when you're working with worms, wear gloves is because when you feed your worms, they are digesting horse and cow manures, and that's going to create a lot of bacteria. So you'll always want to make sure that you wear your gloves. What I do after I take my gloves off is I use antibacterial dish soap, wash my hands in warm water very, very thoroughly. I know that I don't have any bacteria, because if you touch your eyes or something, then you could end up with an infection. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we keep everything nice and clean around our little worms. So this is what my little worms look like. It looks like really like SpaghettiOs. It's kind of gross. And you'll want to make sure that you pick out the mealworms. You don't want to introduce those guys. You take about a dozen or a little handful and just go ahead and put them in the moistened soil. And in a few minutes, they'll go ahead and dig their way down into the soil. And if you get a little bit of cardboard, that's okay too. So I'm just going to go ahead and put just a little handful. And if you come back in just a little while, you'll notice that your worms will then be under the soil. Now, they'll only go about 2 to 3 inches under the soil. That's where they do their magic or work.